All right. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Sorry about the technical issues up front. Still learning how to use the software. Had everything working, the audio, the music, the video, but I couldn't get my special guest's microphone to come on. And there's nothing like having an interview when you have to lip sync or read lips on your special guest. So today we have a very special show for you guys. Happy 4th of July Eve for those of you in the United States. We're going to be celebrating Independence Day tomorrow. A lot of you guys are off or going to be finishing off work early. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you guys have your second or third cup of coffee like I do. And we're going to be introducing our special guest here shortly. Lucia, nice to see you. Timothy, nice to see you. I've known Timothy since I actually started the game in 1124. So I'm happy to see him now in 1166 in the PWR Alliance and having a great time there with a good bunch of folks. Smittens, I see you. LC, thank you for being here. That's awesome. All right. So we got the chat up. We got the chat recording. We've got everything that we needed to do today. So without further ado, I want to introduce this very special person. He's from 1166. He's been kind of like a mentor to many of folks. He's been instrumental in our battle tech and our battle strategies for the state. You know, not only is he a successful player, but he's successful in life. And today's show, we're going to be going through kind of his lifeline or his life journey in the game and allow you guys in the chat to ask him anything. The only thing I'm going to ask you guys not to ask is kind of, you know, like how much money have you spent in the game? That's kind of rude, and we don't want to be doing that anyways for folks. It might put them in an odd position, just like any whale that you ask the same thing. So please avoid that question, but anything else is fair game, and we will get right into this. So you guys may recognize him. Some of you may not. Most of you have never seen him face to face. I know that I haven't. This is the first time that I get to see him. And I would like to introduce you guys to my dear friend, Odin. Odin, how are you doing today?
Good morning. How's everybody doing out there in Godfather gaming land?
Godfather Gaming Land.
Yeah,
It's like
good
the
morning.
boomers on YouTube channel right now.
It is. It is. It's getting close. So good to see everybody. Lifting Chick, Nika. Morning, morning.
Oh yeah.
It's Redneck High Holy Week this week. So figured we'd hang it out a little bit leading up to the 4th of July. Anything to support a good friend and brother and Godfather. So happy to be here.
Appreciate you. Before we were coming on here, we were troubleshooting all the audio. So Odin, thank you very much for your patience as this rookie in technology is trying to figure buttons out. I think that we've got a good flex now on what we're doing. And Odin, why don't you start telling us, you know, where you're from? Where do you call home?
Yeah, Middle America. So right now I'm in Central Time, little north of Texas, little south of Montana. So we value energy and agriculture here. A lot of people might call us a flyover state, but I like it real well. Good quality of life, good property values, good people. The state I've been in has been fortunate to me, really good to me my whole life. It's part of the reason I'm, able to do what I'm able to do now is the state that I'm in. I actually got a full ride to my undergrad through some of their academic programs. So I'm in the house I'm in the town I'm in with the job and career because of the investments my own state made in me.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And, you know, most people are like, hey, thank you, state, for everything that you're giving me. I'm going to the next state over. You're keeping it in-state, in-house, bone
hmm
marrow ranch, in full effect.
Yeah.
The blood of your enemies definitely makes the grass grow there. So Odin,
It does.
I've got something a little bit fun to do. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take you on a journey through your game life, and I'm gonna base it off of the heroes that
Yeah.
were in each of the generations. Okay.
I
So
like the sound of this.
So we're gonna go through generation one, and then I'm gonna take you back. Try to think about where you were during your gameplay
Hmm.
journey, what transitions you were making, and then I'm gonna ask you in that generation to rank that hero. Okay.
Okay.
Then we're gonna move on to the next generation, and we are gonna move things around. Right. So for people that are watching and they don't know Odin, Odin is a fully maxed out whale. I'm talking about 3K stats, all the
That close.
pets, all the gear, all the everything. Invested a lot of time into the game, a lot of effort into the game to make that happen. This is the guy in 1166 that essentially holds things together a couple of different ways. Number one, we all depend on him to hold the castle and to be part of the big rally leadership that happens when we're battling for anything. And then number two, he kind of keeps people in check to make sure that we don't have any tyrants in the state, or Odin will gladly, release you of all your troops in a couple of hits.
That's a service I'm happy to provide the state.
It's a service that I'm happy to provide the state. That's funny. All right. So on your screen, you should be seeing now a little ranking chart,
Hmm.
and I've gone through the effort of ranking a few of them for you, so we can get started. Right. So when we're in Generation One, we're fresh into the game. There's no fire crystals yet being released. You've got a whole bunch of heroes out there. Okay.
Hmm.
These are the only time that we've ever seen blue heroes, and they're obviously used for gathering purposes. So I'm going to rank them all the way at the bottom, right to
Oh,
begin with,
absolutely.
because most everybody is going to get them max at one point or another. And I've put Geronimo, which is your VIP 12 hero, right, as
Oh,
S tier, like number
yep.
one, highest bang for your buck. So those are, I've given you your two extremes. But you also get Molly, you get
Hmm.
Natalia, you get Zinman, Sergey, Ling, Bahiti,
Yep.
Jesse, Jasser, Gina, Seo Young, Wallace, Patrick, and that's a big long list. So I'm doing the easy stuff, just as always, and I'm giving you all the hard stuff, just the same.
As always. Yeah, so this one might surprise you. So like early game, uh I think like a lot of us, it was one of those clickbaits, like, oh, neat, snowboat blower, I'll try that. Um, but then it's not like that. I'm like, oh, this is a war builder. I've been down this road before. So when I was first in game, my name wasn't Odin, actually. I know some of you might remember me at the very beginning. I was has been, so I
Wait,
very
wait, wait.
intentionally picked that
Did
name.
you say your name was Has Been?
Has been. Yep.
As in like a
Yep.
washed up has been somebody?
Like a washed up has been, exactly. So I started playing War Builders back when local access networks, LAN is how you build, played these pre-internet, like 1.0
Wow.
based war games where you just get a bunch of buddies and a bunch of tables and go meet in somebody's living room, and carry your big desktops around. So uh, wasn't quite sure what I was going to do in the game. So I was like, well, I don't want to go hard yet. So that's where I started with Has Been, because I've done this. I think this is number six rodeo, I'd say. And the first one was Ebony. Another big one I spent a lot of time and energy with was Game of War
Game of
as
War.
well. You see the ads every now and then. Stay Alive versus Satess. I was on Team Tess. She was a French countess, and Stay was literally a Saudi prince. And basically, the whole game lined up between either the Saudi prince or the French aristocrat for the big late game battle. They had something similar to a Frost Dragon, but it was just a global um, King of the Hill type setup. But back then, when we had these heroes, I was has been, and I wasn't sure what this game was, what I wanted to do. So oddly enough, Jesse was my favorite because I was primarily a joiner in those days. I mean, I wasn't even probably 40 million power at that time. I had bounced around a few small alliances, and then eventually came into power, or what was power at the time. I don't think it was called power, maybe zero fucks given or something like that. And that was really when I learned to appreciate Jesse. And then the other one was a lot of Patrick. So it was basically my world was very simple. I had an attack hero, Jesse, and then I had a defense hero in Patrick. And this was long before I was VIP, really anything.
Let me make sure that I'm following with you. So you came into the game from being a big player in previous, big games.
MMOs, yeah,
Game of War was a huge game.
huge, yeah.
I think that they peaked out at over 6 million players
Hmm.
worldwide. And for people that don't know, when you play these kinds of games, there is profit to be made by the companies that make them. So they offer you packs to become stronger, and it becomes an internal competition at
Yep.
first within Alliance, and then within a state, and then across the state, and now with Frost Dragon, cross states even beyond that. So you start really comparing yourself against some of these big boys, and you said, the Prince of Persia and the
Yep.
French king or things of that nature. It's not uncommon to be seeing a lot of big tycoons in these types of games because it is a way of kind of exerting their abilities, let's say.
Prestige.
Their esteem, right? So when you were 40 million, you had come from these games and you said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this game just yet, but
Yep.
I'm going to focus in on, I'm enjoying the game, I'm in power in 1166, so you are still in your original state.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never transferred my one and only state. Yep.
Let me tell you, transferring is not what it's all made out to be. Stay at 1166 for as long as you possibly can. Don't go seeking that experience for us, okay?
Yeah. No, I've enjoyed it.
So
I have
you
enjoyed it.
said that you went with Jesse. Where would you rank Jesse then?
Oh, I mean, at that time, I didn't even have Geronimo. So, I mean, I'd put Jesse all the way at the top
This was
because
you.
that was the best I had. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said that you had a
So,
defensive hero with Patrick. So I'm assuming that you would have
yep.
put him up here too.
Yep. I pretty much just had those two and then kind of whatever next batch of strongest filled in the other three behind them. But still very kind of simplistic. I was playing Bear and I was playing Joe, and so about it that I was engaged with. I tried to play Frostfire once, but then fell asleep. Didn't understand that one. Tried to play Foundry once, fell asleep again. I'm kind of an old man also. I like to wake up pretty early. So like 3:34 is my normal wake up time. So
Wow.
any of those like two UTC events, I can get there. I'm just awfully sleepy.
All right. So you had
So
we're leaving Geronimo there for all the obvious reasons, but you had Jesse, Patrick. Who else did he have? Where would you rank them?
that's all I remember from that era. Later on, I built up Sergi a little bit. I built up Blue mainly for the troop training benefit, but not actual like hero um, uses, I guess. It was
Okay.
more for the city buff. Similarly with Zinman, I put a little bit into him just for the construction uh, speed boosts, but not a significant amount. Yeah, I'd probably put him on C. And then Jasser was like a secondary bear hero. But yeah, like the Ling um, troop training, I'd maybe put in A. And then, yeah,
I'm sorry, you said the
Jasser for research was another one I focused on. Um, so,
So you had it like
Wallace.
would you have your purple here as you would say when you started before you transitioned to Odin because we still have to get to that part.
Yeah, we
Okay.
still haven't made the transition
And
yet.
then Wallace was probably like way down here. Nobody
Way
liked
down.
Wallace.
Yeah,
What
he
about
existed, but I didn't really pay
what about
attention to him.
Natalia and Molly? Did he have them when you first started out?
I didn't. Again, this is all pre kind of VIP day
Okay.
for me. I was uh, maybe $5, $10 in at this point. Yeah.
So we'll remove Geronimo here for a quick second then. But you look something like this. This was your
Yeah.
free to play has been
Early.
setup. This was your ranking when you first started. So
Yeah.
how did you go from has been to Odin?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a fun story. It was really all the first SVS. Um,
Okay.
so went through the SVS week. It was pretty exciting. Prep, sign up for ministries, all that sort of stuff. And again, I'd done minimal in the game so far. So upgrades were quick. When you're 40 million power, it doesn't take much to get to 60 million. So the little I had kind of accrued in events and things like that, I was able to roll out during prep. We won prep, pretty exciting, and then we get over to their castle, and it was kind of early trying to figure out who are the fighting alliances, who are not. And one of the guys that I was like fighting with when we do Bear or BIA,
Yeah.
they decided, oh, hey, I'm going to go over to war. They're rallying the castle. Do you want to join me? And I was like, sure, let's give it a go. So joined war for that SVS. And this was, again, the first SVS. So we're only a couple months in. And the other guy holding down the castle had red gear already. And everybody's like on the Discord call, what the hell is this dude with red gear?
Red gear
At
is
this
that
time,
early in the
like
game?
Trunks and Smith were probably the hardest hitters in the state. And we rack up a double and it does nothing. And then we rack up a triple and it does nothing. So we're swearing at each other on the Discord. We eventually line up 7 rallies to all land on the same second
Wow.
just to unseat the guy once. And of course, he comes right back and takes it because he's got 2K stats when the rest of us are sitting there at like 400, 600. Okay. And it was just such a fun event, even getting our butts kicked. I mean, it was just an ass whooping of 7-on-1. It took 7 feather dusters slapping him in the face to finally take the castle away for like 10 seconds. But it was just so much fun. And the structure and the communication, the ability to marshal teams and players and resources around, because we had to, move leads closer and to the front, pull joiners up in to where they could reach in time. It was just a really well organized war machine, I would say. And it was really that moment that I was like, ooh, I found my people. Because in all my other games, my biggest challenge was always that structure, that organization or enterprise of driving discipline to get consistent results, because that's always a key aspect of these strategy games. Is sure, you need the stays, you need the Tesses, you need the Odins to kind of be that big hammer.
Yeah.
But more than that, you have to have a whole support organization of joiners, healers, politicians, entertainers to create a functioning, self-sustaining community.
Yeah, and
that
I want to pause you for a quick second on the community because that's a topic that I absolutely love. But we've got a question that's out there on the chat that I want to make sure that I answer for him. But you said that this was the moment that you guys fought in interstate battle, right? State versus state. And
state versus state.
And you guys lost. Was that true?
We did.
So this
We
was
won prep and lost the castle. Yeah.
one prep and lost the castle. So I'm going back to
This is
see when that
very, very
happened.
beginning. 1199 probably. I don't know. Somebody mentioned that earlier because it was like the first SVS for 1166.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the records there. The only one that I don't, the guy named Mark
It would
Twain.
probably just be a
The
gap.
first
Well,
was
no.
the first one was a Supreme President invader from 1240 named Volt.
Yeah, that was one where we lost prep. That was after that because
Oh,
we lost prep and lost the castle. This would have been where war would have taken president because we held it for like 2 seconds compared to
uh,
what the other guy had, but it was
this
still
one.
enough to keep our president.
Yeah, because this is only going to show me what's in this castle, so we wouldn't see the SVS. So 1199, you say?
That sounds right.
Excellent.
Uh,
So now so I want to get back to the community piece. I still want to follow along. What made you change over to become Odin? You were still at this point in those SVS rallies and the fight. You were
mhm.
still has been. Okay?
Yeah.
And you just told us about that you had gone over to the War Alliance in order to
Yep.
fight. And you've said these are my people, this is my tribe, and you stayed
Yeah.
there.
I did.
What happened next?
I did. Next was I actually had a couple conversations with Smith. She was a R5 at the time, and I was like, "Hey, I don't want to cause any trouble for you, but this structure, this environment of rules and consequences, I really like. This is a place that I could see myself staying and growing. Are you okay with that?" And she said, "Yeah." She was good with that, and I said, "Okay, cool. Welcome. You're going to experience an Odin event." And she laughed at me because she didn't have any idea what that meant. She was like, "Odin event, this guy's crazy. This little bitty nobody has been telling me, watch out for an Odin event." Then for the next, I'd probably say 8 events. I think it was like a King of Ice field and then a something and then a something. But for 8 consecutive weeks, essentially, um, I deployed what I had budgeted. I'll say that. And pretty much consistently took all the top spots for those 8 events over time. Looking back, I could have spread it out over more SVSs, I think, and been a little more state friendly. But that's a little bit of my noobishness showing. I still consider myself a noob because it's only my first state. Um, but in preparation for future SVSs, really focused on density. And that's a common kind of theme that I've pulled with me really across all my games is you can get big, like the power number. Yeah, stack troops all you want. You can put up a big power number, but that doesn't actually mean you're strong.
Yeah.
And on all of these types of games, the research, the gear, the pets, the islands, things like that are all really essential to that core strength or that foundational strength. Once you have that, then you can add troops on top of it and be effective.
So for somebody starting out in the 1300 states and things of that nature, true power is definitely a myth. It raises your
Oh
power
yeah.
level. It's very easy to get. What would you recommend them to do in their build progression prior to troops? What would you have them focus on?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in research and particularly like enabling research. Like the research to accelerate research. It might feel silly to put, 50 days of speeds into something to speed a research up. But then if you do that early, you get that benefit for the whole of the rest of your research. So being intentional about that progression, that sequence
Mm-hmm.
of like bouncing between growth research and the battle research, I think is necessary to really make that research journey the most efficient it can be, because that's one way these groups make their livings, is through those speeds and things like that. So being smart about how you deploy those,
Yeah.
about, okay, I am going to stack troops, so this time I'm going to research training speed improvements, or I'm not going to stack troops, I'm going to focus on construction. All right, then I'll focus on the construction type research.
Yeah.
And it can give you a good multiplier. Other one is pets.
So what do you
Early
so what
on,
do
I
you
got
say
lucky.
early on? Would you say research, then furnace level, then troops?
I'd say definitely research. Honestly, furnace level early on, that could lag to some extent. Um, there's a pause between being able to fire crystal anyway,
Hmm.
heavily. So
So would you say then
research,
research troops, then furnace level?
yeah, and I would say like de minimis troops, because you'll need a set number to participate in Bear and Foundry and um, Crossfire. Like once you get that 5, 6 marches worth of troops, then it can stop being your focus, and you can go back to uh, furnace or other kind of uses of resources and speeds. But yeah, it's only been recently, honestly, the past probably 6 weeks, that even on Odin, I've really amped up the troop counts. Um, and part of it was just a little anxiety for Frost Dragon. I wasn't sure what to expect there. I just wanted to be a little fluffy just in case.
Right.
But nothing bad happened. So I think I even could have rolled into that a little lightweight. Um, but yeah, research de minimis troops so you can participate in the events, bears, and the like early on, because they make a big impact then.
They do.
And then
They do.
once you've gotten that minimal troop stack, uh,
So you're
back
kind of making
to
sure that people are
furnace.
looking at their growth with care. So
Yeah.
don't just focus on furnace level and try to max that out.
Yep.
Don't just focus on getting the most amount of troops. Don't neglect research. You want to make sure that you understand what you're researching begets other benefits. Those benefits beget others. So doing those in a more pragmatic approach and kind of revolving around through them until you get to the FC30, till you
Yep.
get your 5 or 6 marches, and then you obviously are working well down into the battle tree for the stats, right? You're kind of just setting up your base at that point. So
Yeah.
take me through the moment in war that kind of flipped the switch for you to say this is no longer the has been game. This is now the Odin game. What made that click?
Mm, I think it was a time when I finally beat Trunks in Bear. So he had always been the heavy hitter at War Bear for most of what I could remember. I mean, there was Trunks, there was Deer, and there was Smith, and those were the rallies you always wanted to get into.
Mm,
And I had been kind of building up, um, and even in research, I would make it a point to focus on the universal researches like march size or attack strength, the defense more apply to all troops versus one particular slice of troops. So I was pretty deep in the tree, even if I only had one or two on the individual troop types, but all the other kind of all troops, I would research pretty heavily. And finally, I beat Trunks. That was, a pretty big day to get first after, for weeks and weeks you're always chasing a guy. And I think it was around that time. I flipped my profile picture and my name over, flipped my alt as well. My alt back in the day was known as could have been, which I thought was funny. Has been and could have been. But then switched him over to Sleipnir, Odin's trusty battle horse, and really haven't looked back. It's been uh, it was interesting navigating that at first because Trunks was definitely used to being the big guy, and you know, careful positioning is often necessary when you know Whale 2 walks in. It's a skill that you've mastered as well, sir. You got to navigate. You know, it's like two two German shepherds in the dog park. You're like, how's this going to go? But
Like it for you, I'm not a whale. I'm just a jacked up bunny. It's all good.
just the jacked up bunny. Love it. But yeah, it was somewhere around there, and then really getting ready for the next SVSs and kind of learning the culture of invasion. So that was another kind of key aspect on that first SVS. We lost Castle handily, but then we spent the bulk of it actually just running around their hives and burning them down, which that was a blast. And like, poof, my troops were gone, like before I even knew it.
Blasted.
And that was another kind of driver of getting bigger and stronger. Is I wanted to do more of that type of invasion with the team, and it's become kind of a cultural staple at war. We wrap up castle and then we go try to zero anyone we can find.
Yep.
Usually the bigger the better. So
That's funny. And then after every SVS, I think that you've grown your stats to cap the castle as fast as possible, so you can get to your real hobby of destroying as many bases as possible in the other state.
yep. My new favorite is rallying other whales. That is like by far my favorite thing to do. Like when we took out Puppy and Falcom, like that was
Yeah,
that
Puppy
was a highlight of my
Falcon,
day.
Rin. We left Avalos alone just out of respect, but there
Yeah,
was a lot of conversation about taking Avalos down.
I was tempted to try. If I had maybe started with him, maybe I'd have enough troops.
Well,
But
he stayed in that same spot for 3 days. We could have done like quad and 5 rallies at the same time. It would have.
yeah,
The irony of being able to chop down Avalos like a tree would have been surreal.
it's always next SVS.
Next one. All right.
Yeah.
So now you've gone through war. You've gotten a taste. Is this when you transitioned to be Odin, and then you
Yeah,
started
it's around
kinda
this time I
blossoming?
transitioned, and right around that time it was when I think Flint came onto the scene. Um, that was the next one that I remembered was
So you
Geronimo and
didn't really
Flint.
latch onto the game until now, Generation Two, when Flint,
Yeah.
Alonzo, and Philly came out. Is that right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So how was that? What did you start doing to become Odin?
Yeah. So one thing that I think is really important is m- managing within your own means. So I knew these games are designed a certain way, and I use a lot of spreadsheets actually. So like I have a little mini models of different things. Like one of them is chief gear, another one is charms, another one was pets, and like I've got little calculators essentially, and I would run through and make sure that I had a solid plan in place for the next King of Icefield or SVS or whatever
Yep.
that kind of next event was, so that it wasn't just haphazard, get bigger, get stronger, here, 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 here. No, I was very intentional. Okay, I want to do this to then open up this to then open up that. Um, and it was around this time that I also hit VIP 12, and that's where Geronimo really became my staple, and even to a large extent, he's a staple even to this day in my day to day, especially in invasion attacks, or he's still really relevant in Frostfire. Wu, I think now is finally like I'm convinced that Wu is stronger, but I still like Geronimo better, even though like mentally I know the math and the stats are better for Wu. It's just grew so connected to Geronimo, not ready to let him go yet.
Yeah, for anybody that out there listening, the Geronimo is the best bang for the buck hero ever.
Yeah,
He will be useful in some aspect of the game until you've been playing this thing for at least a year and a half, almost 2 years. So
yeah,
what you're just talking about, Odin, is you get Geronimo. You picked him up in Generation 2. You have to almost fast forward one full year to Generation 6. So
yeah,
that is a lot of juice coming out of
yeah,
that hero. So
yeah.
you would put him in S rank then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
just the longevity that he brings um, to your game. Even if he's not all the way maxed, even a 4-star Geronimo's rock star.
Yeah.
You can still skill him up well. Great for joining with that attack boost. Great for attacking with that attack boost. Great for rally leads with that attack boost. So there's a lot of use cases for Geronimo for a long time.
Hmm. Where would you put Flint then? You mentioned him a little bit ago.
Man, Flint, I really liked, and this was one of the mistakes that I made early on. Is I actually built him up, and I was ignorant of Geronimo, so I actually built up Flint to a pretty stout level when I saw the VIP stuff for Geronimo and could get him. So Flint was my like default as I got to VIP 12 to then switch over to Geronimo. So I'd put Flint for the time. I'd put him at an A. I mean, he often would make hits for me even bigger than Jesse in Bear. Um, it his was more chance, so not always a like, not always a guarantee to get that big hit, but it was nice when you did.
Okay. And then where would you have Alonzo and Philly then?
Yeah, Alonzo, I'd probably put him in B. He was really helpful for arena and exploration, but in terms of like what he did to help like Castle or Bears or Foundry, I didn't notice a huge delta there. It might have been that I was still kind of early into Battle Mech and Game Mech and all that. Um, but where I noticed the impact the most was Arena for really both of those, Philly and Alonso. Um, Philly, I did notice a difference on defense in Castle. That was another one. So I might put her um, potentially as high as A, but I don't know. I still think she's a B um, because it just didn't really register as a significant improvement over what I had before.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, did you get Natalia and Molly?
I had them, but I didn't really do anything with them. They were just kind of spares because I already had my Geronimo, my Flint, Alonzo, and Philly. So I had kind of that top three already.
Mm-hmm.
So like even though like the Natalia shards were there in the VIP kind of option, I think they're actually still there in my account because I didn't go that direction.
Did any
So
of these other heroes kind of lose a little bit of their value in Generation 2 and with what you were now growing into?
yeah, you can definitely drop like Sergi, Jasser, Jesse, Patrick, all the purples. I'd probably just drop one tier by this time. So like Jesse and Patrick were now as important to me as Flint, and then all the other purples would drop down into B um, for Sergi and the other ones there. So it was really, I think, more about Geronimo kind of coming to the front and setting the pace. It's not that they necessarily the other heroes got weaker. It was my perception of like where that finish line ought to be with Geronimo that
Yeah.
kind of shifted everybody else in priority.
And the unfortunate thing for heroes, and I wish that there was a little bit longer, but you get about 80 days of a shelf life with a hero.
Yeah,
It's about roughly
a
80
couple
or
months.
so days. You know, you start with the first generation, and 40 days later, it's the fastest generation there is. But 40 days after generation one, you're getting generation two, and then it goes 80 days from that for generation three, and so on. So, not going overboard from the get go is not a terrible idea. I appreciate that even when you could get Molly and Natalia as easily as they were to get, they weren't your focus, right? You had your three that you wanted to use. You had your five for arena and exploration, which is still very needed in the Generation 2 stage of the game, but you weren't going overboard at that point. And
Yeah,
then you also mentioned that you were following a plan. You
yeah,
essentially said, my goal is to get to here, and I'm going to approach it in this manner.
yeah. Like I would plan out when I would achieve certain key milestones, like when I wanted to max my chief gear, when I wanted to max my charms, when I wanted to max research, hero gear, and the like. And it was an intentional um, kind of rollout where, I'd have a set of resources that I was planning on deploying um, over, well, I'm kind of strange. I do annual, quarterly, and monthly plans and budgets. So I tranche things out like that. It's just part of it. And it's one of the spreadsheet models I have. Um, and so
I
what I
think
would
I think that
often
one of the
do,
questions I need to ask you at some point in this interview is what your 5-year plan is in the game.
that's a good question. I have one. Um, but the way I would think of it is kind of like a snowball where once I got chief gear maxed out, I could redeploy those resources into accelerating, you know, maxing out charms, redeploy those resources into research and so forth. So I would keep, within my means. And everybody, I think, has their own level that they're comfortable at. Uh, and it's really about intentionally using that to the best is what I'd encourage people. Is everybody's got their own. I've seen some amazing free to plays that have made a huge impact. I've also seen some kind of astonishing pay to wins that are not actually winning because you know what, they don't get it.
Yeah.
They're paying but they don't get it. And those are the ones I feel for the most. It's like, oof, so close, buddy, but so far away. And I think, understanding the battle mech, understanding the priority, understanding how to make an impact and punch above your weight is, I think, way better than just burning some credit card down to, achieve something. And that's where, like, again, it gets back to your own means. And you can make an impact
Yeah.
across the whole spectrum if you're intentional about how you play your own game.
Yeah. The game presents to you all of the options, and it
Yeah.
tries to bait you into, ponying up real money to get stronger. But if you follow some very conservative ways of growth, and I've done this with some of my
Mhm.
other accounts. You don't have to go overboard, and you hear this across a lot of advice, like getting certain heroes to 4 stars and stopping, saving for the next
Yep.
generation to go to double into, and because there's a lot of competition weaved into the game, people find that they just kind of fall into it, and I think that that's the
Yeah.
trap that
It
you
is.
have to avoid. You have to kind of put some blinders on to all the events and the skins and the things that the game is offering you, and just think about what it is that your role is in the alliance, right? And you said this in the beginning, and I think that people missed it. You were a joiner. You identified
Yeah.
yourself as a joiner. You had no ambitions to being the lead, but you were in the support cast. Now that you're a lead, somebody else is the joiner. And what I find a lot of people do when they're upgrading is that they're following the template for the rally lead, which is
Yeah,
totally different
it's a
than what their
mistake.
template should be.
Yeah,
Right? So they're upgrading their infantry troop quality. They're upgrading to get the health and the stats and all that stuff, and that may not be needed. And this is where I really want you to get into the community aspect of it, because I'm already telling from the way that you're telling the story that you are going now from being an individual contributor as a joiner to now growing in a very pragmatic approach to doing so, becoming a rally lead. And then because you've been in both roles, you value the teamwork that's required to win, right?
absolutely.
So, in your view, was this when Generation 3 started coming out? Now you're a full Max Whale. Now you are Odin. Now you're
Yeah.
kind of looking at the broader spectrum of an alliance and a state and things like that. So I would like to bring you back to where you were commenting on what you feel makes an alliance successful and what's a good team in your eyes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's more than anything, it's really a commitment to be there for your teammates. Um, in a number of different events, be it Foundry or Canyon or Sunfire, or even SVS. We've been outgunned. They've had more players, they've had stronger players. And if you get the right committed crew, you get people that put in the time to set up healing accounts, put in the time to think about, what are ideal attack and defense ratios, put in the time to review, these reports that, okay, we're not able to unseat them. What's going on? Let's talk about it. Um, Having that commitment to be present is the big one. Showing up is half the battle. I mean, so many times um, we'd be matched, and one comes to mind of a state where the big guy was Maverick. He wasn't feeling well. He couldn't engage in the fight.
Yeah.
Um, we won the castle only because they didn't show up to fight for it in seriousness. They had a couple key people that everybody thought they were going to take care of it, and one of them was sick and the other one just didn't feel like fighting that day, and you could see the whole situation kind of unravel when it it wasn't a team. It was just two people that kind of barked orders around to everybody else. And a committed team shows up on time, sets up on time, understands the right ratios and heroes. That more than anything else drives outcomes. I see it um, even in the kind of Legion 2 events that I do with my alt. So my main, I run almost all the Legion 1 events, and with my alt, I run all the Legion 2 events. And you see it across the board. If you got a committed team of people paying attention, sending right heroes and right ratios, it amplifies the impact of everyone. Then the community aspect, I think that's a really valuable aspect of these social games. So massively online role-playing games like this are a lot of fun. Everybody's got their role. We've got Queen Smith and we've got Knight Nick, and everybody's got their kind of tranche to play, and they do it well. Um, so building that good team takes time, uh, but it's also a community to lean on when shit gets rough. You get to feeling sick, or maybe you're going through a nasty divorce, or maybe you're trying to switch jobs, or maybe you're graduating college and wanting to polish your resume. Um, Having that community to lean on to help out, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I've coached a couple people on their resumes. and that's a joy of mine. In personal life, I do professional coaching, so in game life, happy to do the same. So,
So, so what roles are in an alliance to make it successful? You talked about the teamwork,
mhm.
the being present. I think that goes well undervalued, and you hear this a lot for people that have been an alliance leader, not necessarily the R5 for a period of time, that they will take active over power any day,
Oh
right?
yeah.
If somebody's there showing up, steadily growing, being active, keeping the lifeblood of the alliance going, participating in events, that is more valued than power alone,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
For the simple reason that the power can go away. Any given moment, they could just drop out. But there's a lasting effect that happens when people are active. It does create the community. It does create the cohesiveness that you need on a team. Because when
Yeah.
you are in a battle scenario, sometimes you stop being friends and you spark some orders. If you're not friends before that, it could be pretty off putting.
Mhm.
Being friends prior allows you to understand and empathize with the other one. So, but you were mentioning earlier on in our conversation that there's kind of some roles, right? You've got your leadership, your administration, your community, your social. Could you summarize what those roles would be in an ideal alliance for you?
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely the leader. Good, bad, or ugly. I think these games work best with that executive, that one throat to choke at the top of it all. I'm deeply grateful that I don't have to be that. I'm often that in my professional life for projects or programs or this division or that division. And I do not look for that in my game life. That's about the last thing that I want is goals and performance reviews for fun. But having a strong, consistent, and fair, even if you disagree with them, if they're consistent and fair, you can work with them. Leader at the top, I think, is really important. You see a number of alliances, not 1166, but other states that struggle because they're, juggling between 3 to 5 leaders and they don't really know who's in charge. And you get different directions and guidance and things like that. That's a
Yeah.
recipe for confusion. So the strong executive at the top, big believer. That executive needs a senior leadership team to be able to operate and expand their influence, where they establish what are those principles, policies, how do we define ourselves as a group of volunteers playing together? What is our culture? In war, we talk about the band of warriors, and we joke around about blood makes the grass grow. That's our culture, and uh, in business and in game, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you can come up with the best strategies that you want in business or in game, but if your culture is, the social alliance, or your
Yep.
culture is the academy where it's all mentoring and training people, and then you take that culture and you drop it on top of a castle and expect it to battle, good luck. That's going to be really hard. Same if you take that battle culture and you drop it into an event that's supposed to be social and fun. That's going to get real awkward real fast. You've got to align those cultures with the strategy at the time. So,
I
strong
100%
executive,
agree. I,
strong leadership team to kind of disseminate that culture. And then you need a thick layer of actives. And that can be everything from a little F1, growing all the way up to your whales that have no interest in being in leadership. Like I mentioned before, I do a lot of that in my personal life. And I was honestly an R3 in war for almost as long as I've been an R4. And it was a bit of that, well, we've got strong leaders that I'm not needed for that. And then one time for a castle, I became R4 to manage turrets and garrisons. And didn't look back after that. Um, but I think strong executive, strong senior leadership team, and then that thick layer of actives that buys into the culture, because every alliance needs to have its own identity,
Yeah.
and it gets into some kind of themes we talked about before of play your game, um, where alliances need to do that too. They need to be themselves. Don't don't try to be, AOD or be Rod or, war's going to be war. That's who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's valuable for all alliances.
And,
Same
and,
with
and there's
Power,
there's a
Bud.
layer that happens, right? You had mentioned it already, where you want your leadership team
Hmm.
to echo the vision and the culture, right? You're kind of setting the tone with the people that are looked up to just based off of the title and position. And then you
Hmm.
have your active folks, which essentially are the ones that are going to be socializing and participating in events. And then you have some of the folks that are a little bit more casual than that, potentially in your alliance. It all depends on what you have there. But you really highlight on a point in terms of having your own identity as an alliance. And it's
Yeah.
really important as the game continues to evolve, because there's not a lot of people that are picking up the game, starting it, and joining this state, right?
Yep.
They're now joining much younger states than us in the 1300s and pretty soon into the 1400s and so on. Or sorry, the not the 1300s, the 3000s. I think that the states are in right now plus. So when you're looking at your identity and you're identifying what you are, you're likely going to be getting organic growth via transfers. And if you don't have a culture and a leadership and some of the staples that need to be out there, essentially how you run events, the communication for events, how
Yep.
you do bear, what strategy are you deploying and why are you deploying it? Those are kind of foundational level elements of an organized alliance that everybody is going to expect. Then you get your alliance image, right? The fun, the competitive, the casual, the whatever you choose to be. That is what you're offering people that are coming into that alliance, because it becomes more of a cultural fit than it is a power fit at that point. So
Yeah.
so
The,
take me through. I'm gonna skip through a little bit here. I want to jump all the way to now being over. You're over a year and a half in the game, almost 2 years into the game. We're now in Generation 6. You're looking back at everything that you've accomplished. I want you to do two things for me. Number one, I want you to set up this board with what the today looks like for your heroes. And then I want you to tell me about some of the most memorable times that you've had in the game to date after 2 years of playing.
sure, sure, sure. We'll start with the board. Let's throw Woo at the top with Geronimo. Let's put probably Renee and Wayne up there too.
At
Those
S tier, A
four,
tier.
a S.
Okay.
So Wu, Renee, Wayne are up at S with Geronimo because I'll use those four almost interchangeably as a top stack.
Sure.
Um, that's two, yeah, Renee and Wayne.
Where would you put Reina?
Reina, I'd put in A. I like her a lot. And before Renee came out, Ray, Renee would have been S. She was up in that top tier, but as soon as Renee came out, I ran some tests and really liked the way Renee hits across the board. I'd put Nora up on S also, but really only for her defense. Um, so yeah,
Which one would you put?
Nora can go up to S, but really only for a defense play.
Sure. Yeah, and this is your ranking, so however you want it. You got Mia, Lynn, Logan, Hector, Gwen, Greg, and
Yeah,
Outros.
we can put Mia in A.
Okay.
Put Gwen in A. Yeah,
Okay.
me and Gwen in A, and then
You have Lynn.
uh probably B or below at that point. Because really, like right now, I only use heroes like in S's and A's, with the exception of like, you know, a Foundry or a Crossfire random gather here or there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where would you put Logan?
yeah, B. Honestly, I was disappointed with Logan.
100%.
When he came out, I was expecting so much more. Like I had just gone through like Flint and then Geronimo, and I was like, oh, heavy hitters. And then Logan comes out, and I was like, wah, wah.
Yeah, he looks so promising. I had
Yeah,
that's my profile hero and everything. Big giant old guy with a big old fist. I had
yeah.
high expectations of him, and he did
I
not
was
deliver.
underwhelmed.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, just not impressive. Honestly, Hector hit harder, even though he wasn't hitting as hard as Geronimo whenever I picked up Hector. I'd put a Moose probably in C also, maybe Hector in B. Um,
yep,
and then Greg, I liked Greg for a long time. I used Greg for a long time.
he was great in
But
arena.
Gwen, huh?
He was great in arena.
Yeah, he was really good in Arena. Yeah, I'd put Hector in B. He's fine. And I'd put a Moose probably C. And I'm excited to see seven Gen Heroes. That'll be next.
Now,
And
now,
I'm a
obviously,
total noob.
Patrick would drop. Sergey would drop. Where would you put them in?
Uh, Patrick, Sergi, I'd put them all in B probably. Jesse, I'd move down to B also because I use her, but only occasionally.
Yeah. And the thing, I mean, this is one of the great things about what we just talked about with having your role, understanding your play style, is that these heroes, these purple heroes, are specifically made to join. I mean, the
Yeah.
stats that you're pulling from them as a joiner, so you can easily max out these joiners, do quite well as a contributing factor,
Oh,
focus on
massive.
your troop quality, focus on your research, skip heroes, save until you're ready to double down and get just one set of three really good ones.
Yeah.
So you are a viable, joiner in a bear. You're a viable joiner in rallies and events. You could loot. You could do a bunch of different things in things like Foundry. You could still get top five
Hmm?
in Frostfire if you follow some of the guides that we've posted out there. Just had an F2P player go up against a whale in Frostfire and get second place.
Yeah.
So we'll be posting that video a little bit later. So this is now your setup. Okay,
Yep.
this
This
is
is where I'm
now
at right now.
as
Yeah.
Generation 6 with a full maxed out player. This is what he looks to. And remember, if you're catching this just now, if you're just joining us now, this isn't a recommendation for you. This is the value that's placed in these heroes for specific purposes. As mentioned, Nora is an S tier, but because it's defense, right? She's
One specific use case.
one specific use case. She may not be used anyplace else, but she's critical to have maxed for a specific use of defense, like holding a building. Okay, so what is your most memorable time in the game?
Ooh, most memorable. It was probably the SVS with Sushi State. That that was a lot of fun. I forget what number that was. But
1147, I
there
think it
were
was.
which one?
1147, I think it was.
I think that sounds right. 1147 sounds right.
Or something like that.
So
Yeah.
this one was we got into matchmaking and we had our America flag and they had their Japanese flag. So it started off exciting just from the get-go. But then uh what's really funny is I just watched a whole bunch of One Piece anime right before this.
Okay.
And uh one big storytelling in One Piece is a character called Odin, Oden, It's a type of Asian noodle dish. And the joke is Odin wouldn't be Odin if it's not boiled. So one of their big whales, whenever they were doing their reconnaissance on our state, he saw me, and then somehow it got back around to me a screenshot from his account that said he doesn't even know how to spell Odin because he was talking about the noodle dish and not the Norse god. So he changes his name to Noodle Dish and takes a profile picture of the noodle dish and everything. So now I've got a chip on my shoulder. This guy just called me Noodles. And I was like, I'm not Noodles. I'm a Norse god. Good luck. So we go through Castle and we do it. And this was actually the one that I was queued up to be president for as well. I don't remember if it was president or supreme, but we got Castle taken care of, and then we go back to invasion. And then after a little bit of invasion, we looked back at Castle, and that guy was still sitting there in the red zone. And I was debating. I was like, can we take this guy out? Can we not take this guy out? And I'd smitten in my ear, and she was like, no, we're taking him out. So we go, we hit him, and
we ended up losing prep against them.
We did.
I mean, if you're new to the channel, you're on here. Thank you for joining. You could go back actually and look at Anchorman covering that SVS. It was just we did not do very well in prep. Troops didn't happen. Hunt day didn't happen. It just was not our prep. So
not our prep.
They had a lot more people, and I do remember Odin that he put that on there. But we had to defend our castle against this small army of pretty hefty players. I remember Ken Kanaki, Barbie's Asian boyfriend.
Yep, Ken Kanaki was there, and we were able to hit Odin and burn him out of the red zone. And then I think it was either Carter or maybe Heartless found him scanning the map. And then once we found him on scanning the map, we went in, and that was our first whale to zero. And we called that the Odin Hot Pot. We have a few different screenshots of, my machine's going to die pretty soon. So if I get cut off, sorry, Godfather.
Oh boy. All right. So let's do this. There's two questions. Let's see if we can wrap that up before we get it. Number one question from Dog in chat is, what is your quick take on T12s and charm level 16s?
Oof. Yeah, charm 16. That's going to be brutal. These games always do this. They'll keep that finish line always just a little bit beyond where you want to be. It's also normal to have this type of logarithmic growth challenge. And it's really a necessary function. Also, you can't let the whales get too far ahead. And you've got to basically make it increasingly more difficult to continue to level up. So on one hand, I'm really excited about it. There's not a lot of sources for health and lethality, and that is really a driver on a lot of big hits, be it Castle or big solos, or it's pretty excited to see. I think Ace got himself a 1,000,000 kill solo in Foundry. That was pretty awesome. So the health and lethality is going to be really nice. The stockpile to build up to it, I'm probably less than a quarter of the way there, based upon my spreadsheet that I've got. And yes, like everything else, I've got an intentional schedule of build out along with FC10 also. I got to give a shout out to J4N. Been working with them on timing and scheduling and kind of lining out when to do refined crystals and when not. T12s, man, heard a lot of rumors. I don't know. I think
it's gonna happen. It's kind
I think it's likely, but I'm betting it's on the other side of the FC10. But we'll see. right before I left Game of War, they opened up a whole new troop type. Essentially, it was like a T-12, but that was probably the third or fourth time they had done something like that. So as these massively online games mature and age, they've got to balance kind of two things. One is revenue capture. Two is player attrition. So what you'll often see is what was super difficult early on. Get to FC5 or get to Helios. They'll start reducing those requirements. At the same time, they'll create new challenges and they increase the requirements on those. So any new person can get up to Helios way faster, but that old whale still has a lot of value. Because they're, an FC8 with Helios, for example. But yeah, I think it'll be a necessity. I think we will continue to see those things get metered out. Even pets was an addition. It was added before I joined, but you talked to a number of the OGs, and there was a whole game world that existed before pets. So could there be another addition like that? Sure.
Okay, I think so. I think the T12s are a real possibility. Um, Nothing's confirmed yet. The only reason that we're saying that is because it's easier to get the um, the T11s currently. We we're gonna foresee FC10s before that. Charm level 16s are a definite. We're gonna get those just after Generation 7. In the chat right now, they're talking about how expensive it is, how fast you can get to it. You can be saving a lot of the materials for it already. You can be saving a lot of the materials for that already, but it's not going to do a lot big difference from a timing. You get a new material that you have to use, and that's going to be the kicker. That's going to be the one that kind of slow rolls that out. Now, we did lose Odin. His machine died down on us. Bone Marrow Ranch has been going through some power outages going on, so he was running on his laptop. Wanted to make sure that I thank Odin for his time, for being on the chat with us today. Always a pleasure to have him with us and kind of, enjoying some time with the community. So I want to move this over then to chat. See if you guys have any additional questions. We did hear from Odin today on what we were doing, or his journey in the game, going from has been a player from another big game, coming over, getting a feel for it, and then making a change. And what I want to draw the parallel to is that his change didn't come from what the game offered. The change came from what the Alliance offered him. And the biggest point of this entire interview is that it really does take a team to be successful within Whiteout Survival. For a lot of folks that are starting out in younger states, look for people, look for your tribe that you click with. Don't be afraid to transfer early on until you find that group of folks that you're going to enjoy gaming with. Power is less than activity, so being active and enjoying, give me one second, and enjoying the game with other folks. That's where the value's all at. If you're only there for events, that's highly unlikely with a game such as this one. Make sure that you find your tribe and have a good time. So Odin, thank you so very much. I'm going to answer some of these questions that are in chat right now. So the question here, biggest recommend hero to 5-star from Gen 7. Gen 7's a really pivotal one, right? So you've got Gordon, you got Edith, and you have Bradley. They are all very good heroes, and I think the Generation 7, because of the way that it was released in the game, it's why they bring so much good in a bunch of different facets. So if you're asking me which one to focus on, I would definitely focus on Bradley, followed by Gordon, and then Edith. Sorry, followed by Edith, and then Gordon. Yeah, Bradley is the guy that we want. Yeah, so Timothy mentions in chat, the reason why I transferred now was because I couldn't grow as I wanted. And Timothy, you've actually been with us before in 1125. Um, so it's good to see you back here. I know that there was a lot of 1124 folks that you were helping out. You were an R5 for UND there for a time being. But when you are in a state that's dying and you're losing all your prep and people are kind of being disengaged and disenchanted with it, you've got under 200 players active on the server, the state is pretty much dead. It's not going to offer you anything other than less competition for money spend events to get skins. What is this? Dog says, make this last statement of GF an ASMR clip. Say that last statement again. Bradley will be the main. Yep. Blanchett replaces him then at some point. I mean, that, you know, Shriva, you know, Bradley is going to be the main. It's going to be another big value hero in Bear. You're going to get a lot of value from him, in obviously for the 80 days that you have it. Every generation is going to offer a different variety of needs depending on the type of player that you are. But every generation is supposed to upgrade the previous one, right? Making it the reason for people wanting to get them and having folks avoid it. For whales out there, you got to get them all anyways. They're going to play a big part in attack and defense on buildings and an SVS. So if that is your role, you're kind of stuck with that. You have to spend through whatever you've saved in shards and dailies and such in order to get those heroes, and you're going to have to max them out with the widgets as well. So I appreciate that, Tim. You know, transferring was the best decision I made within months. Well, Aces is actually one of our bug members. Really appreciate you joining us last transfer from 1157. He was also an R5 of an alliance out there. Really love having him. Great leader, great person. Isn't a leader in bug currently, but obviously provides advice and other qualities about, you know, just being a really good person inside of the game and being in our alliance. Let's see. Dog, why is there no option for super chats? You know, probably because I'm still a rookie at this and I don't know what those are. I don't usually look at other people's lives or participate in to know what those do. I see like a top fans link. But if you're asking for super chat, then it sounds like I need to go figure out what that is for the next time that I do a live stream. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And some of the things here, like last subscriber, top donator, tips, and things, you know, last like, those are all things that we'll get working within a couple of weeks or so. All right. Anybody else have any other questions around upgrading heroes, Generation 7, T12s, game strategy, game stats, game mech, anything of that nature? Excellent. All right, guys. Well, once again, thank you guys so very much for the support and participating in here. I hope that you guys enjoy the live streams. Once again, big thank you to Odin for joining us. That was a huge face reveal for most of the folks. For me personally, I had never seen him face to face, heard him on Discord calls, obviously, but so ever thankful for him, his leadership, his partnership, and for just being a genuinely great individual. I hope that all of you in the States are going to have a very safe and fun 4th of July, Independence Day weekend tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of fireworks and food and friends, or not, and still have a good time. So hope to see you guys in game. Hope to see you guys in future chats. And as always, stay spicy. Take care.